everybody. Welcome back to Blushing Phoenix or the April Pointer Podcast, whichever one you are tuning into right now. We have the honor of having one of my favorite people, which is my brother, Tony Spillman, on today. And I have a feeling this will be at least entertaining, if not educational. Tony, I cannot pronounce it. What is that condition called?
Gynecomastia.
Gynecomastia, which is enlarged breast in men. We're going to talk about that.
Gotta stand up straight. Gonna rise like a champion.
So let's jump into gynecomastia. Is that what it's called?
Gynecomastia. So basically, gynecomastia means female breast. So gyno is the female part, mastia is the breast tissue. So it's basically, there he is, female breast on a man. So that's what gynecomastia is.
Yeah. And so it's something that I know that it's similar to with the blushing phoenix, erythrophobia. People have that fear of chronic blushing and the insecurity. And it's things that I think from an outside perspective, a lot of people are like, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. And it's interesting when somebody has some other condition that creates a lot of insecurity, because I may look at it and go, well, I notice it, but that's not that big of a deal. So I really want you to talk about it a little bit, because there's not, similar to erythrophobia, there's not a lot of information out on the internet, tons of people talking about this thing. And I think it might have to do some similar to erythrophobia, that people are just kind of shameful. They're ashamed maybe to talk about it, don't want to talk about it, kind of like pushing through it. So you talk to us about what that actually, what it is. So when did you notice that for yourself and it started impacting your self-esteem?
I would say definitely younger on, with the way that we grew up, we had the family and the grandmother that was basically like, you can't get up from the table unless you finish your plate type thing. So there was some, especially with me and Eric, because I know you were skinny as hell growing up, but me and Eric both kind of plumped up in our preteens. And that's when I noticed it. And I know it can be hormonal, and with guys, it's also very early on in puberty. They'll get these estrogen hits to their body, which can enlarge their breast. But most of the time, like 60% of the time, I think it'll reverse as they grow older. So you'll see like teenagers with puffy nipples, or you'll see them with actual like swelling of the tissue, but then it'll go away. Mine never went away. And I remember one time standing in the kitchen where we grew up, and dad walking over and like cupping my boob and going, damn boy, you got some girl titties. and I know dad, you know how dad was. Like,
oh my God.
Right. And I mean, like, that's something that will completely F you up for the rest of your life. Like, I was scared to take my shirt off going to the pool. I wouldn't send shirtless, I wouldn't take shirtless pictures. I wouldn't wear certain clothes. And like, I've noticed that throughout my cycle of growing up and dealing with it and everything else, like there were certain times where like I never wore plain t-shirts because you could see it more. So you'd wear a button up, or you could wear a collared shirt, like a polo, because the thicker material could kind of hide it. When I was younger, I would also wear those they're called wife beaters, but that's not the name of them.
It's not politically correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the undershirt tank tops.
Right. They're called like A-frame shirts or something like that. So I would wear those, and I would tuck them in so tight that it would flatten my chest. And so I think like growing up and all that, like I got really good at hiding it. I actually started about 10 years ago wearing compression shirts, which we could probably get a sponsor if we wanted to for them. It's GC2. You can cut that out if you don't want it in there.
No, it's okay.
And so they like, that was a game changer for me, because that was they're restrictive shirts. They're like a spandex feel. They're almost like a bathing suit for a woman, the way that spandex feel is. And it flattens everything down. So for 10 years, I was content, but I still didn't want to take my shirt off to go to the pool. Or if I went to the pool, I'd wear a tank top or, stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely something that I decided to correct. Like after a certain amount of time, like I wish I would have done it when I was younger, because it's something that, especially as a guy, I think one of the things that, people now, because I talk about it, because it is something that people are ashamed of and they don't want. Because people make fun of it. So people will make fun of you, and it's basically like you have boobs, like you have breast on a man. And so like there was one time in high school when, you remember her, she like did something, touched my chest, and she was like, and then she went over to, I don't know if I should be saying names. And
Oh,
like,
don't say their names. I'll have to cut it. It's
um, so she came up to me and she touched my chest and she was like, oh, like, what is that? And then she went over to this other guy and touched her and was like, his is firm. Like, yours is like soft. And like, that stuff that basically, as you grow up through your teen years, like, you develop this really big self-conscious, always something in the room. Like, you're always like checking yourself in mirrors to make sure that nobody can see it. And, you know, even just down to even taking pictures. Like, before I got on here, like, I'm checking. And I mean, I've had surgery, but it's still one of those things that still sticks with me. Like, I'm always, it's in the back of my mind that I'm always thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing when you talk about like what dad did to you, like in a joking, teasing kind of way, and people kind of making fun of it. It's interesting because with erythrophobia and chronic blushing, almost every single person that has talked to me about their condition and their insecurity and their phobia is because usually in their adolescence, somebody made fun of them. And so, you know how people go, oh my God, look how red you just got. And the whole room starts laughing and all eyes are on this one person. And then like, oh, you're getting redder. You're so embarrassed. That literally becomes a trigger point for people where they are now stuck in this vicious cycle of, am I going to flush? Am I going to flush? Am I going to flush? And it creates that fight or flight reaction in their body. So now they're sinking in a shame because of that. And so when people hear about it, they're like, what do you mean? That's what happened. So you decided to do something about it, but how old were you at the point where you were like, I need to do something about this? And what made you really get into that headspace of like, I'm done hiding it. I just want to do something about it.
You know, it's really weird because the plastic surgeon that I went to, I'd actually gone to in like 2011. And when I went in there, so I don't even remember how I came to know what the term was, but I remember I was at work and I guess like something popped up on Yahoo and I went down a wormhole of, oh my God, this is me. This is what I have. This is so weird. There's other people that have the same thing. Um, and you know, and like in high school and stuff, like I wasn't a big guy. I was actually probably underweight and I had an eating disorder and we could talk about that too. But you know, it like I went through and I saw that there was actually something that could be done about it because I remember at 13 going on a chat room and asking if there was like pills that could help, you know, and they're like, no, you're going to have to do surgery. And I was like, I don't want to do surgery. Like, it's scary. So I went through and I saw before and after pictures and I found a couple of plastic surgeons. And this was like 2011, 2012. And I called them and set up an appointment. And I remember going in there and the cost, like at that time, I mean, I was making like a fourth of what I make now. And it was going to be like $9,000 to get it done. And just being like deflated because cosmetic surgery is not covered by insurance, even though this is something that's detrimental to your mental health. And so it was something that I thought about. And then when we get into the corporate trauma part, that's another thing that slowed me down until COVID happened. And then I realized that since we work from home, I could actually take the time off, not feel guilty, and recover. And so when I had a friend that actually had done the same surgery with the plastic surgeon that I'd seen like 8 years before, and it got it going again. And I was like, you know what? I'm in a better place in my life. Like I have credit now if I can do it on a care credit card and then pay it off and get it all paid off in 6 months because $8,000 is a huge sum of money. But if you can break it down, like with care credit for 6 months interest free and all that other stuff, not that this is a commercial, it makes it easier. Whereas before, like I was broke. I, you know, made like $25,000 a year. I had insurance, but I had horrible credit and stuff like that. So it was like I couldn't get it done. And then all of a sudden it just hit me like this is something that has nagged at me since I was a teenager or a preteen, like 12 years old. Something that I've constantly had to deal with. And you know, it's hard for me we were raised to be tightwads. You know, mom and dad were very frugal and it was really hard for me to commit to spend that money. But then I was like, you know, this is going to be the rest of my life. Like I've dealt with it for this much. Like, I don't think that there should be a monetary limit of what I'll spend to make myself happier.
Yeah. And I like that you're sharing like care credit and things like that, because if anybody's listening to this, it's like, it's too much. They immediately discredit it. And then you're like, there's actually there's options for you of what you could do, and payment plans and interest-free payment plans on certain things. That's what I was going to ask about. Does insurance cover it? Because even for Sway, when Sway had the misshaped head when he was a baby, called plagiocephaly, insurance doesn't cover that either. And it's crazy. Yeah, it's cosmetic. Even though the doctor said, I think it might have been actually our functional neurologist, Dr. Deering, said, even though that will mess up eyesight, that will mess up like all kinds of things that are off in the facial structure because the head is off. But nope, they don't cover it. And so we had to pay out of pocket for it. But same, like we look at him now at 9 years old and we're like, oh my God, could you imagine if we never got that taken care of for him? Just this lopsided head boy. And like, as he gets older, so about the procedure. So tell a little bit about like what the procedure was like and the recovery on that for people who might be interested.
The procedure, mine was only liposuction. So usually there's YouTube videos of a doctor in Austin that actually performs these. And I watched him religiously before I actually like reached out back to this plastic surgeon. And then and like the way that he talked about stuff, like, so with a guy with gynecomastia, it basically means that you have fatty tissue around breast tissue, like a woman, like your glands they expand and they stay. Like you can work out all day long, lose weight all over your body, but that stuff will stay there. It's not going to go anywhere. And this is one of the things that I wish I probably would have championed a little bit harder for myself was my doctor only performed liposuction. So we did liposuction. He did, let me move the cat so I can show you. So he did 2 incisions here and then liposucked this up this way, up this way. And I was very embarrassed also because I had like Oreo sized nipples.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You not only had the extra tissue, but you also had more
areola, and I hated that. And so the doctor in Austin always talked about once they move the breast tissue because it's connected to the bottom of your nipple or the inside. Once they remove that, usually you'll see them contract. And mine never did. So I actually had a second surgery where he went in and he basically did a donut. So he cut a donut around it basically and then pulled the skin tighter to where it made it smaller. So now instead of like Oreos or silver dollars, I have like dimes. But the procedure was, once you get your mindset, it's kind of like when I got braces in my 20s and you had them as a teenager. Like when you find out that you're getting them, you're really excited. You want to get it done like right away. But there's things that you have to do beforehand. Like you have to do blood tests and everything else and make sure you're in good health. Kind of like with braces, you have to go get your teeth cleaned to make sure you had no cavities before they put braces on. And I'm a very impatient person. When I want something, I want something. Like that's why I don't go look at cars, because if I go look at cars, I buy a car and bring it home. Like I just don't do it. And I remember setting up the time with the doctor and him being like, okay, well, I think you're a good candidate. We'll do it in like 6 weeks. And I was like, 6 weeks? I want to do it now. Like I thought I'd come in tomorrow. We'd be getting this done. So we waited 6 weeks, and this was also, I think, right after Dad passed away, or right before. I can't remember at this point. Everything in the last.
I feel like it was after. I think it was after.
Yeah, I think it was Dad passed away in June, and then I think in July I actually had it done.
Yeah, because I specifically remember still being traumatized and hoping that you didn't die when you went under.
Yeah,
because I was like, I can't lose my dad and my brother. I didn't tell you that. I didn't tell you that at the time, but I was still very traumatized from the whole thing with Dad.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's scary. Like I was nervous, but great doctor. The nurses were amazing. Like I remember a doctor coming in, or a nurse coming in, and she was deaf, but she was still verbal. And her telling me that she was my bartender, and then she was like, "These are the best drinks you're ever going to have," and it was, the drugs that they were going to give me to knock me out. Literally fell asleep, woke up, and was like, "Are we going back?" And they're like, "We're done." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So they put me on some really good pain medication. I'm not a pain pill person. Like I'd rather take Advil, but the pain hurt. Like I'm not going to lie, it hurt. I also elected because of our body shapes, I think because of hereditary reasons, we get certain, like, and this is for everybody, like there's certain areas of your body you can work out all day long, whatever, and you still can't get rid of like that pudge or something like that. So the reason why mine was $8,000 was because I elected to go ahead and have my flanks done, because I've always had love handles, and then the lower part of my stomach, so that way it would flatten it out instead of having that like curve over.
Yeah, you're
And
already under, so might as well just.
right, right. And why do it again? Because I mean, part of the payment is like $1,500 is for the anesthesia and the operating room. So might as well just go ahead and get it all done and knock it out. And waking up, the chest hurt. The lower part was so much worse. Like it hurt. Like I'm not gonna like anybody, even if you're not doing your chest, you're doing your it hurts because you don't realize how much of that part of your body you use just to sit up, to pee, to sneeze or laugh, or and basically you don't want to leave the bed because it hurts. But recovery was quick. I think like after about 4 days, maybe 5, the soreness started to really go away, but then the bruising stuck around for probably about a month and a half, 2 months. And I remember going into the doctor and him saying, well, let me take a look at you, take your shirt off and everything else. And so I did. And I was like, I felt like you beat the shit out of me. And he was like, well, literally, he was like, I took that little one, and I think it's called a cannula or whatever. He was like, I took that and literally I beat the shit out of you. He was like, it's not easy trying to get that fat tissue out.
Did you do like the anesthesias? Like, did they do like the thing down your throat and everything, or is it like the twilight stuff that they kind of put you out with? Do you know?
I think it was twilight because I know the surgery, because I elected to have anesthesia. You can actually do this not knocked out. Oh. And like the thought of that scared the hell out of me. I was like, there is no way. Like you and your natural childbirth, more power to you. Great on women. Y'all are so much stronger than men. I am weak. I do not want to see, smell, hear anything.
No, that last baby, I'm like, I should have done an epidural. I still don't know if my crotch is intact. I don't know.
It's still on the operating floor.
I'm still wondering when it's going to just fall off. Yeah, and not that I think that had to do with the naturalness of it, but I felt if it's still a year and a half later feels like it's going to fall off, then that lets you know a little bit about how the labor and delivery went.
Well, if that's something you're self-conscious about, I would 100% endorse having cosmetic surgery if you need a rejuvenation. On
my crotch? That is a thing. The dermatologist does it here.
Yeah.
How did the dermatologist, I guess? That is I saw that when not because I was looking for that, but because I was looking for something with my skin and I saw they did that thing and I'm like, of course, I'm clicking on it. Like, what is this? Okay. Well, if I ever do it, I'll definitely do a podcast about it and tell everybody about it. Between that and the Oreo nipples, I'm like, what the fuck is like going on in our lives?
I know.
And inverted nipple. I couldn't even breastfeed well because of inverted nipple. They're like, you can do it. No, I can't. It's not working. It's not coming out.
And it's kind of funny too, because I think like if you had can I cuss on here?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like if you had fucked up teeth when you grow up, like I think one of the first things that you notice about people, and a lot of people say the first thing they notice about someone is their smile and their teeth. But I think if you grew up with fucked up teeth, like the first thing that you notice is the imperfection of everybody around you. So, and like when it comes to the chest, like you look at chest, because even now, like after the surgery, it's still not like, it's not perfect. It's not ever going to be perfect. And I've accepted that, but I feel more comfortable in my own skin. But it's kind of like, that's the first thing you notice on everybody. Like I can literally you've been over to my buddy's house at his pool. Like we'll have friends come over and they'll take their shirts off and get in the pool. And I'm like, he has gynecomastia. He has gynecomastia. Oh, he has really nice man pecs. He has man boobs. I don't say it out loud because I know
to size it up. Yeah.
Right. But I also like it because those people, once I told them that I went to the surgery, and I didn't tell some people because they're judged me. And they were kind of put off by the fact that I didn't say anything. And I was like, well, you make fun of me because like I dye my beard or, I draw in my eyebrows because literally from here over, it's basically like just blonde hair and you wouldn't be able to see eyebrows if I did. And I was like, so why would I tell you that I'm doing something else that's cosmetic? But it's funny because then it kind of changed their opinion on some stuff. And then they started coming to me asking me what the price was. And basically what you asked me, like, does it hurt? And how did you find the doctor? And would you recommend your doctor? I would not recommend my doctor. I was going to ask that. Would you recommend your doctor? Yeah. He is mostly into female cosmetic surgery. So I guess you could just say he's a boob man. And so I think with this is just kind of like a secondary thing that he'll do, but I don't think he's great at it. There is another doctor in Nashville. I think his name is Christopher Robbins. He actually does transition mastectomies for female to male, and so like he's more in depth with the removing of the tissue and like making sure that everything's sewn up correctly. And they actually do drains to where it'll take the blood out, because when you lose the tissue, like there's internal bleeding and stuff like that. I would recommend him or the doctor in Austin, but I'd have to look up his name. I can't remember it. But I literally have thought about going back and having a second surgery with either the doctor here in Nashville that I've talked to, another friend that had surgery through him, or
more satisfied.
Yeah.
It's something about that specialty, really getting that specialist, because even with erythrophobia and chronic blushing, there is a surgery that can be done. It's called an ETS surgery, endoscopic thoracic sympathectomy. I can't believe I just remembered that, but it's called ETS. I did like a whole series on it a couple of years ago, but it's where they go in and they like cut like nerves.
Yeah.
It scares the shit out of me. I am like, nah, I'm good. But there are literally people that this is life or death for them. And for some, unfortunately, it became a death situation. Like they struggled with chronic blushing so bad that they committed suicide because they just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And they were suffering silently. So I talked to Dr. Deering and I interviewed him on the channel. He does functional neurology. So he is like, don't cut the nerves. You need them for other things. But he even he said, unless, in so little words, this is a life or death thing for like everybody has to make the decision that they need to make. A big thing in the chronic blushing realm is, my big thing is like acceptance and like, who am I beyond this? But I flush on chest and neck, so I can wear a high neck shirt if I'm going to go be in a public setting, or I can just feel more comfortable, similar to you wearing your like tighter shirt. But that was something that it still was with me, whether you can see it or not, it's still with me. So I elected for, let me talk about it. Let me get exposures around it. I wasn't always like this, a little different than your situation, because you were this way. This is how your body formed. And so for people who are listening in, whether they're dealing with that extra tissue or they're listening because of Blushing Phoenix and they're kind of on the fence about those surgeries, it's like everybody has to make their decision that's really best for them and the quality of life that they're trying to have. And I think for you, I know I definitely wanted to talk to you about this topic because I think it's an under talked about topic. It's not something that's, even when I was doing some research on it and hearing or reading about like how a lot of people, it just goes away, but then there is a percentage that it doesn't go away and nobody's really talking about it, and like you said, even finding a term for it, because when people find Blushing Phoenix and they find it through either the word erythrophobia, which they didn't never know was a thing until they were in like the wormhole and they're like, oh, this is a thing. I don't even know how to spell that. Yeah, it's a big word. ERY. It starts like, it's like, and when I first started saying it, I literally could not say the word, but it's like a part of my vocabulary. But erythrophobia and that fear of blushing, which creates a chronic cycle of blushing, because it's like a panic. It's like general anxiety disorder. You're constantly like running from it. So you're creating it again and again. And I think that there's just so many similarities around the surgeries. So that was what I was going to ask you about. And after we like get done with all of this, if you can see who that doctor is, if you'll send me his information, I'll post it in the description box below. And I'll put your information in there too, if anybody has additional questions about your surgery. So my last question on here for that part was, how do you feel now? Are you happy you did it? Do you feel more confident? And I know you said you weren't really fully satisfied with the surgery, but overall, how did that change things for you?
I think like I'll always have self-image issues because of, said eating disorder and stuff from like 15 to 24. So I'll always have issues, and like my weight fluctuates. Like I've been super, super skinny, like unhealthy looking skinny, and then I've ballooned up and stuff like that. And it's just more of, as I get older, the less fucks I give. And like, I'll be 40 this year, and I've heard more than once people say they call it the fuck it 40s. Like there's something to be said about your 20s. I feel like you're trying to make everybody else around you happy. In your 30s, you're finally coming to terms with yourself. You're becoming more successful. You're becoming more confident in what you know. And that's where I'm at now. And then when you get to 40s, it's fuck it. Like fuck it 40s. Like, I can mentor people. I can do whatever. Like, I'm never going to be a morning person. I'm never going to like mushrooms. Like, it's just like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, you spend your energy on the things that are life-giving, not
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
recreate who you are at this point.
Yeah, and I think especially like going through, because I used to have a really big problem too with aging, and I think with going through what we did with Dad with his diagnosis and stuff, like it really taught me. And Mom even said, and I think she got this quote from a movie, you know, I don't mind growing older because growing older is a privilege that not everybody gets to do. And that hit me because before, especially being, you know, gay, it's kind of like looks is a big part of it. I think a fear has been like, I'll lose that as I get older, which actually I think you and I probably look better now than we ever have. But, and I don't want to sound like, you know, I don't want to sound self-centered or anything like that. I think there's some part of acceptance of yourself thing that's very attractive, and it makes you more attractive to other people and stuff like that. And so I think I'm content with where I'm at. Would I have another surgery to fix it? Yes. Will I take my shirt off to get into the pool? Yes. Am I ever going to be completely happy with my body? No, I'm never going to be happy with my body, and I've accepted that. It's kind of like my relationship with food. I always had a very love-hate relationship. Like, I love the taste of food. I always hated the act of eating. That's the way I've always said it, because to me, eating made me feel puffy, or it made me feel fat. And like, I could literally eat something and think in my mind that this will make me gain 5 pounds. I've never put anything into my mouth and never thought about the calories. I've always thought about the calories, the carbs, and everything else. Like, I just don't enjoy that stuff. Holistically, like, it's always in my mind. And so I'm glad I did it. If anybody else wants to do it, I would 100% say do it. There's financial ways to do it. It can be overwhelming. See more than one doctor, look at their reviews. If you can find another patient that they've had, or at least, like, you know, because not all doctors will put bad feedback on their websites. But if you look at different sites where you can actually get like the grade of a doctor and stuff like that, like, definitely look out for that. Find someone that specializes in it, and talk about it, because I think that's the big thing, is like, most people don't know about it because nobody wants to talk about it because it's embarrassing.
That's the same thing I say to people from the Blushing Phoenix community as well. It's like, we got to talk about it. If we're not talking about it, then we're suffering silently with it. And I think the more I see people who hit the channel and they're like, I just feel better after typing and sharing with somebody that I'm going through this as well. And I could see the similarities between what you had gone through and what you've dealt with from the insecurity side of things, and some of the things that people with erythrophobia and chronic blushing deal with as well.
And just really quick on that too, I would say, even if it's something that's not a big deal to anybody else, if it's a big deal to you, it matters. Like, to me, it's hard to understand how debilitating blushing can be, but I can also understand how debilitating that can be for somebody because of the insecurity that I've had since I was like 12 years old. So I think it's definitely like, talking about it gives it power. You know, being a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, like, talking about it gives me my power back. So it definitely is something that I would suggest, if you're going through something like this, talk about it. Also, people will come out of the woodwork that you never know that had this issue, and you just build your team even more and get more support. So the more you talk about it, the more people come out of the woodwork. They'll be like, oh wow, like, I didn't know that was a thing, and I have it. Like, look at my neck, this is what happens, and everything else. Or, you know, I've been hiding, like, I never take my shirt off whenever I go. I've always had a farmer's tan because I've always got a t-shirt on and stuff like that. So no, I completely agree with that.
I think that's great advice, because something about shame just pushes people to the corner. It pushes them down. It makes them hide. And it's amazing how when we start talking about the things that we're struggling with, pushing through that fear and discomfort of actually talking about it and taking the risk of people not understanding. But like you said, people come out of the woodworks. When I first started talking about how I was suffering with chronic flushing, I mean, we've got like 1,700 subscribers now, and these are all people that are dealing with the same thing. And that's with no marketing effort. So, you know, it says, it's the last study they did in 2007 said that 7 to 10%, I believe it's somewhere around. Dr. Madeline said it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of the population in the world struggles with chronic blushing and the shame around it.
Yeah, they actually have an episode of Grey's Anatomy with it.
I think I saw something about that one time there, because it's always like these little small like snippets of this information, and people that I've met that are like, give me more. And then it like just kind of moves on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I'll
not
have to
that big.
look. I'll look up and see what the episode is and say, because I'm a Grey's Anatomy freak. Like I've watched that since the beginning. So there was definitely a episode where every time one of the cute doctors would walk into a room, her face would just turn bright red, and she'd be like, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, you could do nerve damage." And she was like, "You don't understand. Like, I can't live my life like this." She was like, "You can't just think somebody's cute and just it be in your mind. Like, they literally can see what you're thinking on your face."
Yeah, exactly. Was she gonna get a surgery done?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it the ETS surgery? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll
that,
look it up and
yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I bet that's what it is, because you could do, there's a lot of like things that could go wrong. Actually, I think that surgery was banned in like Sweden or somewhere like that, where they're like, we can't do this. But like Dr. Deering said, it's really about what's your alternative. And that's why like I have a series on the channel about it, and people are like, well, what do you suggest? And I'm like, I'll tell you my experience based on my mental state, but I would never tell you that you should or shouldn't. I think you should, like you said, with the surgery that you had, you need to do your research, find a doctor, find a couple of doctors, find some people who have gone to that doctor, and then just don't tell a lot of people that'll breed negativity over it. Even if they're being realist, sometimes you don't need that. You just need like, I just need to do what I need to do and jump right in. You don't need the additional fear. All right, Tony, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited to have everybody get to know you a little bit more, a little bit about your experiences. If they want to find you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, where's your main spot if people want to come follow you?
So I would say the main place would probably be LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Tony.Spillman.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the description box below so people can get to you and reach out to you if they want to have further discussion or just share like me too with you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to connect and mentor and stuff like that too. So if anybody has if they need some guidance, let me know, because I feel like at this point I'm a professional and I have my degree, damn it.
Qualified, bitches.
Full circle.
Rise up, rise up, rise up. When you've had enough, when the crowd gets rough, gotta stand up straight, gonna rise like a champion.